Welcome back to the deep dive. So this week, we're doing something a little different. We're pivoting away from the usual data streams, the big technical breakthroughs. Our sources today are much more introspective. They're drawn from excerpts of a really thoughtful text called The Architecture of Silence.
That's right. And for you, the learner, our mission today isn't really about adding more external facts. It's about extracting, the practical architecture of restraint.
I like that, architecture of restraint.
Yeah, we're trying to move past this passive idea of silence as just an absence of noise. We want to look at it as an active and actually an incredibly powerful choice.
Okay, so the goal is what exactly?
The goal is to understand precisely how this choice sharpens your judgment and really fundamentally elevates your communication.
It's definitely a quieter deep dive for us, but the hook we pulled from the material, it suggests the impact is, well, anything but quiet, it reads. She slowly realized that not every truth needed a voice to be powerful. I mean, that's about cultivating internal strength, which, as we'll see, translates directly into external influence.
Absolutely. The foundational wisdom here, I think, is learning how to choose when your contribution is valuable, and maybe more importantly, when it isn't.
Okay, so let's unpack that first realization.
Yeah.
The text introduces a character, Anvika, and her starting point is basically realizing that speaking is often just unnecessary noise.
Right.
She finds that silence, more often than not, carries more clarity than a rush of words. Why is that idea so crucial right now in our world?
Well, what's fascinating here is the psychological reason the source gets into it, analyzes why we rush to speak, and the text observes how quickly conversations just fill up with these impulsive opinions.
Yeah.
And it's driven by a deep human impulse. People often speak, and this is the quote, not to be understood, but to be noticed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That hits hard because it really speaks to the difference between performance and, a genuine contribution, especially in a digital world where visibility feels like currency. Yeah.
Precisely. If your main impulse is to be noticed, to prove you're smart, or you're informed, or engaged, you're always going to prioritize speed over substance. And silence becomes the direct counteraction to that performance impulse. By consciously holding back your immediate comment, you fundamentally shift the whole dynamic.
How so?
You move from needing to perform for attention to just maintaining a quiet presence. You're focused on absorbing and processing what's actually happening.
But doesn't that take a huge amount of self-control? I mean, for someone who really wants to contribute, to be part of the discussion, choosing silence can feel like choosing to be invariable.
It can feel that way, but only if you misunderstand the choice. If you're silent, you are absorbing data, you're absorbing context that the people who are performing are just missing completely.
I see.
You're building a stronger understanding of the landscape before you decide where to, build your structure. The clarity you gain comes from refusing to pollute the informational atmosphere with your own noise until that noise serves a really specific, necessary function.
So, if silence is the path to external clarity, how does that active pause work on the inside? The source material is very careful about this distinction. It calls it silence as a form of restraint, not suppression.
And that distinction is just vital. It's everything, really, because it determines whether the act is draining you or strengthening you.
Okay, explain that.
Suppression implies you're sort of wrestling with yourself, right? You're holding back some volatile thought that's boiling over, and that's inherently stressful. It causes internal cognitive friction.
Yeah, I can feel that.
But Restraint is a mature, forward-looking decision. It's the conscious choice to let the initial, the knee-jerk, ego-driven reaction just pass, and instead deploy a measured, considered response that you've actually vetted.
For our listener, who's often in these fast-paced environments, I can hear the immediate objection. If I always wait for my thoughts to mature, won't I miss the boat? Doesn't restraint in a meeting just make me look timid or slow?
That's a legitimate concern, but the sources argue that the opposite is true, at least in the long term. That pause gives you these cognitive gifts that people who jump in immediately, they just don't have access to.
GIF, like what?
The first and the most foundational one is time. Not just, 3 seconds of breathing room, but genuine time to fully absorb the context, assess the emotional temperature of the room, and process what was truly said, not just what you think you heard.
That initial rush. Yeah, it often means we're already drafting our rebuttal while the other person is still talking.
Exactly. And that time leads directly to the second gift, maturity. The source uses this beautiful phrase, allowing thoughts to mature before they were shared. Think of it like letting a complex argument just breathe. If you rush to deploy the immediate reactive thought, It's raw, it's emotional, it's incomplete. The mature thought, born after that brief silent gestation, that's the one that has reconciled the input with your existing knowledge.
So it's almost like having a quiet conversation with yourself internally before you board in the group with your first draft of an idea.
Precisely. And that maturity leads right to the third gift, careful choice. The time you gained allows you to, quote, choose her responses carefully. And this isn't about crafting some clever performance.
Right.
It's about weighing the overall impact of your statement against the actual goals of the conversation. Am I contributing to the solution here, or am I just adding to the noise?
This brings up a fascinating point about where wisdom really lives. If it's not in how much we speak, and often not even in the words themselves, where is it?
Well, the source material suggests wisdom often lives in that quiet space, that intentional space between words. That strategic pause is the crucible where judgment is quietly strengthened.
That's powerful.
It's the moment where you reconcile what you heard with what you know, and crucially, you decide if your perspective is actually necessary for the group to move forward.
So all that internal work, that careful pausing, it must have a pretty powerful external consequence. How does that strategy translate into, generating trust and reliability out in the world?
Oh, it creates tremendous relational capital. If your words are always preceded by that thoughtful pause, they just gain immense weight. The source points out that timing gives words their power. If they're spoken too early, they lost their strength.
You essentially dilute your own currency by spending it too freely. If you jump in on every minor point, then when you finally have something truly crucial to say, the audience is. They're just fatigued. They've already tuned you out.
That is the perfect way to frame it. You are managing a resource, your intellectual credibility. When you speak all the time, your words become a common commodity. When you practice restraint, your words become scarce, and therefore, they become highly valuable.
So people start to listen differently.
They do. They begin to listen not just to what you're saying, but because it's you saying it, which must mean it's important.
And the anecdote in the source about Anvika in the school setting, it just perfectly illustrates this payoff.
It does. She developed this strong reputation because she spoke when clarity was needed, not when attention was available. That is a huge distinction.
When clarity was needed, not when attention was available. Wow.
She wasn't seeking the spotlight. She was applying necessary context or offering that crucial piece of information that unlocked the next step for everyone.
And the result was this immediate external validation. Her teachers began trusting her responses because they knew they were measured. And her friends learned that when she spoke, it was usually worth listening.
This is the core strategy for you, the learner, in any setting, professional or social. Choosing silence is not a passive act of removal. It's a highly strategic method to elevate the perceived value of your future contributions.
So you're leveraging scarcity to increase your influence.
You are. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, in our information-saturated world, the rare, measured voice is the one that always cuts through the noise.
That brings us to maybe the most practical payoff of all. Protection.
Yeah.
It seems like conscious silence isn't just about influence. It's an incredible tool for managing your energy and preserving your focus.
It's absolutely essential for cognitive endurance. I mean, we've all been trapped in those endless email threads or, office disagreements where you feel this compulsion to jump in to correct some minor flaw or debate a side point.
Oh, definitely.
The source details how conscious silence protects both your emotional energy and your intellectual focus. It does this by establishing really clear boundaries around your involvement.
I often find those arguments are less about finding a solution and more about defending ego, or just the need to be seen as knowledgeable. That's the real drain, isn't it?
It is the ultimate drain. And the sources offer two clear, actionable filters to help with this. First, recognizing that not every disagreement required participation.
That's a huge one.
It's a massive filter for preserving emotional energy. If you stay out of a conflict that doesn't directly impact your core mission, you save all your resources for the things that actually move the needle. You let low-stakes arguments just run their course without your needing to jump in and validate yourself.
That seems incredibly difficult to master, especially when the disagreement is about something you know you're right about.
That's why restraint has to be viewed as a mature choice, not suppression. The thought might be valid, sure, but maybe the timing is wrong. Or the impact of voicing it is negligible compared to the cost of the mental energy you'd spend on the argument.
Right.
And the second filter from the source is just as vital. Not every misunderstanding needed immediate correction.
That's about managing the impulse to be the instant expert, the fact checker in the room.
Exactly. Sometimes Just allowing a minor factual misunderstanding to sit there, or even letting it self-correct later, is far more efficient than spending the social and intellectual energy to fix it right that second.
So by choosing when not to speak.
That mental energy is preserved. It allows you to focus on the truly important issues. You're basically refining your decision-making funnel by removing low-quality inputs and low-stakes conflicts.
It sounds like the ultimate productivity hack, where silence becomes a powerful form of strategic action. You're not just reacting to the world, you're reserving your best thinking for the most important problems.
It fundamentally changes your relationship with urgency. You realize that most things that feel urgent don't actually require your immediate voice.
That brings us to the close of this very reflective deep dive. The material from The Architecture of Silence gives some incredibly practical guidance for modern communication and, really, self-management. Let's quickly review the 4 key life lessons we pulled out today.
Okay, first, silence has to be seen as a conscious, active choice.
Right.
2, managing your timing is what gives your words their maximum power and value. 3, active restraint protects your clarity, it preserves your focus, and it manages your energy.
And the 4th.
And 4, this choice of restraint is what strengthens your judgment. It allows your thoughts to mature before you deploy them.
That's a powerful concept to internalize, especially in environments that are just built for constant, rapid-fire contribution.
So my concluding thought for you, the listener, is to just reflect on that distinction we made. The difference between simply having many opinions, which the source notes Anvika definitely had, and feeling perpetually compelled to voice them. I mean, just consider what clarity, what focus, and what energy you preserve today simply by choosing to listen to this dive rather than interrupting it or, thinking about what you would say next.
And if silence truly is a form of restraint, not suppression, here's a final provocative thought for you to mull over. Think of the highest stakes thought or piece of advice you have right now. What is the one thing you're going to let mature for an extra 24 hours before you share it? That choice might be the single best contribution you make this week. We'll see you on the next deep dive.